found the perfect match, but she wasn't for me. Ever since I lost my wife, relationships are boring. I'm losing my mind, there clearly ain't no turning back. My only counteract is Keisha and the Palestine. My life, nowhere.
Numbers that they're talking about, but to the response from the community. Did you hear the mayor? And did you look how enraged he was? And he's pointing about residents and citizens in his own community about get out of here, take it someplace else. Where are you going to take it to? The neighborhood to invite you in if you're a gang member. Ever thought about that? But take it someplace else. Okay? So, if you can't take it someplace else, like, let's just talk about what we could do if we couldn't take it someplace else and we wanted to rebuild, like, say, Hilltop. Right? We couldn't take it someplace else. We got to rebuild Hilltop. Well, now, what type of things based on that type of attitude? Because that's what you're coming back to. Okay? You're coming back to people that still remember the sting of not having somebody to grow up with, not having a grandparent. Okay? So now, what type of plan have we been working on to address that? Not just individually, but collectively, okay? Because last time I checked, Hilltop Prep was a neighborhood set. It wasn't 1-6, it wasn't 1-5, it wasn't dual, it was neighborhood. Am I correct or did I miss something? Okay, so if it's Hilltop neighborhood, I remember that one day, I got pissed off, I don't know if y'all was out, but I kept asking people real quick, man, and nobody could give me a good explanation. So I've been drinking that day. I can say that now because, well, I was drinking that day. And I decided to get this big old board out, and I painted it white, and I put a picture of a community, and I put in C, community, R, resurrection, I, N, P, progress. Community resurrection in progress, okay? That's what I said Crip means to me. So whenever anybody asks me, I said, hey, it's community resurrection in progress. Now, that may sound like a reach back then because everybody was trying to get what they could, I get it. But now that we're reflecting, folks, and we got kids of our own, okay, that doesn't sound like a bad idea, community resurrection in progress, does it? Especially when you keep the acronym. Ain't nobody gonna go to jail for saying I'm part of community resurrection in progress. I guarantee you. I'll go down there and fight for you, man. If they pick anybody up and say it's gang related, it should be gang related because that's a group of people trying to get something done, isn't it? Ain't that a gang? Okay. So, now, here's when we'll get to the cure. One of the big cures is relationships and understanding, okay? There is so little of that going on right now. Good quality relationships, okay? When I say relationship, I'm not talking about people that you know. That's not relationship, it's a kind of relationship. But what we're talking about here is, I know this person, I see you, I understand you, I feel you, okay? Those are relationships, and those are a commodity that we need to get more of out in the community if we're going to turn the curve on things and start looking for cures, okay? Understanding and supporting relationships are crucial for pre-release and re-entry individuals as they provide the emotional foundation needed to build trust and stability in their lives. These connections foster a sense of belonging, accountability, which can significantly enhance their chances of successful reintegration and reduce the likelihood of recidivism. I am so stuck on the recidivism. We have a natural response to someone dying. My grandmother died of old age, my uncle died of liver cancer. Okay, someone died. Okay, now, when we have a response to the word killed, okay, now it's a little bit different. If you noticed it, the emotions attached to the word killed. Someone was killed, got hit by a car. Okay, someone was killed in an auto accident, someone was killed in a fall. Okay, now all of a sudden those emotions are a little bit different. Okay, where are you going with this, Larry? Where are you going with this? Hold on, I'm gonna tell you. Now, let's get to murder. Now, how does that one feel? How does that emotion feel murdered? Now, when a person has accumulated a lot of people who have died in their life, a lot of people who were killed in their life, and now let's just throw a cherry on top of it, a lot of people that were murdered in their life. You have some significant, sustainable trauma because you step three of the biggest conditions that man has to deal with, like a sandwich. Okay? And without the proper assistance in how to deal with that, nobody gets out safe. The family doesn't get out safe, the community doesn't get out safe, nobody gets out safe. Does that make sense to anybody? Does that make sense? Okay, so now, I want to bring some people up here. Let's see here. Who out here in the audience here said that they could come up today and speak a little bit? Yeah. Yes, thank you. Now, folks, this wasn't meant to be putting people on the spot here. I asked certain people to come up here so that we here in the audience, if you haven't come from where we're coming from here, with gang violence and incarceration, it's a certain type of incarceration because it doesn't just end when you get done being locked up. Okay, if you're on certain lists, your life is on that list for life. Okay, so the challenges aren't just going to happen overnight and just go away. So I would like to ask I'm going to just ask a couple of quick questions here, and we'll lead into it. If each of you could just answer this question. What were some of the traumas that you brought upon yourself with your involvement in whatever it was that you was doing? What type of trauma did you bring upon yourself? What type of trauma did you bring upon your family? Okay? And if you can think about the community, where did it lead things? How were things when you left things?
Thank you, Brother Norman. I will defer to my sister first.
I'm Shawanda. So I'll answer that question. I think the trauma, first I would say that I brought on my family was what caused me the most. It was like a reverse traumatic experience in itself, right? Seeing my family go through pain and struggles behind my poor choices and having to deal with the aftermath of the choices I made time and time again, right? So I've been incarcerated, I can't even tell you how many times as a juvenile, and I went to prison 4 times. And on the 4th sentence, I kept getting like 9 months or, whatever, 11 months. And then when I went the 4th time, they gave me a 10-year sentence. And at that time, I had an 8-year-old child that I left behind to be raised by my family. And so that trauma was something I endured, having to visit with my mother and my child for 7 years in prison through the visiting. You know what I'm saying? Not being able to parent my child and experience him growing up and maturing, and then coming home to have to deal with the trauma that he experienced from not only having his mother be incarcerated, but his father as well. So we both left our son behind. And so, and at that time, he was, without that supervision, he became involved in gangs and drug activity at a very young age. And, so I had to deal with that, deal with, my mother having to raise my child. And on top of, I had a sister at the time who was struggling with addiction, so my mom had her kids as well. And so, and she was full-time working. Hey. No, now's not the time, sorry. She was working full-time, so, she would go off on me all the time at visiting about how she was struggling with trying to parent my child and my sister's kids. And, and so after every visit, I had to think about that as well, like with the harm that I caused, not only to my family, not only to my son, but my mom as well. And then, and then the community impacts of my poor choices. I was running and gunning when I was out there. And, I wouldn't, at the time, I didn't see it as suicidal behavior, but I was living my life so risky and on the edge at a very young age that it didn't matter if I lived or died most days. And so I had to think about that too, and like my poor choices and how I exposed my son to that lifestyle and how he was, continuing in my footsteps.
My name is Willie Nobles. I'm the Vice President of the Black Prisoners Caucus Community Group. And first, I have to thank Dr. Arundel for allowing us to have this space to be able to deal with emotions and talk about trauma and be able to come together and connect, right? I think that is mandatory. So, I'm one of the ones that was raised in this neighborhood in the early 90s, in the late 80s, and I was a terror, right? And that's what I did for this community. I terrorized this community, and not only did I bring trauma to myself, I brought it to my family members, I brought it to my loved ones, and I also brought it to my friends. And now as I'm older and I'm wiser, and now I can think back on all the mistakes I've done, that's the reason we're here today. We're here to give back, we're here to build community, because a lot of it, I took a life, right? I took a life in this neighborhood, and that's something I have to deal with every single day. That's my drive, that's my motivation, and that's why I do the work I do. And also, family members have been caught up in this lifestyle. And it's like a revolving door, and I've seen my friends come and go. Like Mr. Larry said, Larry was someone we used to look up to try to keep us out of the neighborhood. It didn't work, but he still tried. And he was one of the positive role models that we needed to at least know that we had someone if we needed someone. So he's been there, and the reason why we're here to even talk about trauma and wellness and healing is because we believe in it. We understand it. We understand that there's a lot of trauma in these urban neighborhoods. We understand there's a lot of trauma in these social structures. So for us, that's why we're here. We're coming together to connect, and we're coming to do what we do, y'all. Thank you.
Just coming into space as a mindfulness practitioner. I'm Faraji Bhakti, the Wellness Director of the BPCCG, and also Co-Executive Director of Yoga Behind Bars. And thinking back to the questions that the Brother Norman offered and invited us to, there was a couple of parts to it. I think I will start with the community impact. It felt to me, as I heard Larry access the questions like accountability to self. It didn't say what did I sprout out through to blossom these fruits of dysfunction. It was, what was my accountability? And so I sold drugs in this community to support my children. And we can have another discussion that furthers why that decision. That decision was made, and time again I was sent back to prison trying to support my children without the proper adult financial literacy. And we're really grateful to see one of my brothers in space that his part of liberation for reintegrating individuals is all about financial literacy. That's all he's doing. All I'm doing, I'm trying to bring the healing and the trauma-informed yoga and Salvo. There's so many pockets that are vacuous, sucking everything up. So I left vacuums in my community for the people that were addicted, for the transactions that were made, and I learned what transactional love was. Transactional love. I loved my individuals that I was in that lifestyle with because I was getting something that would help me provide for the access needs of myself and my children. So that's where I had a loyalty to. What was the trauma on self, I think was another part. It was an overriding drive. That's what I'm seeing now, present day. I had to override. I had to kids need to eat and have diapers and food, so it ain't no wait 2 weeks for a job that I actually was getting child support taken out of for children I support. That didn't even make no sense to me. And these babies needed to eat. And my own childhood trauma of being hungry at many foster cares made me override any decision that was gonna look like my children not having a meal.
Tired of being in these streets, damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray. Keep your head up, take it from me, all you gotta do is pray. Keep your